Hey, I'm Charlie. You're watching Overtime Arcade. And if you saw my last video, you know that I was incredibly lucky to score 2 complete arcade games absolutely free, one of which was a Sega Pengo. Awesome game. So we kicked off a brand new restoration project to bring that Pengo back to its original glory. Now, one of the big things we're going to have to do as part of this project is remove all of the black paint that's covering up the original ice blue color of the cabinet. A previous owner had converted this Pengo, so they took Sega Pengo and they converted it into a different game. They converted it into a Time Soldiers. Now, Time Soldiers is also a good game, but I would much rather have the original Pengo. So in this video, we're going to remove all that black paint. We're going to strip all that black paint off. And you've seen me do this kind of thing before with the Ms. Pac-Man and with Joust, but there's a different twist here. Something very different is going to happen with this attempt, so make sure you watch that. And also, we've got a bit of a sidekick project going on. So the other cabinet that we got with this pickup for free, this big Dynamo HS-7, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to remove the black paint off of it. We're going to do, a 2-for-1 sort of deal here. So I'm really excited to continue with this Pengo restoration. So without further ado, why don't we head out to the garage and get started? Let's go!
Overtime!
All right, I really want to get the black paint off of the sides of both of these cabinets, but before I can do that, there's a couple things that I'm going to need to do first. So off camera, I did a couple of things. I did repair the broken wood that was over here on the top of the marquee box of the Pengo. If you recall, I mentioned in the previous video that I sort of smashed that up a little bit in transport, but that's fine. I saved the original piece and I was able to just use some wood glue and clamps to get that mostly back in place. There's a little bit of it that's crushed up there, but if I really need to repair it, I can do it from above. But with it being the top of the cabinet and the T-molding up there covering it up, you'll likely never see it. The other thing I did was, again, if you remember in the last video, the Time Soldiers PCB in the Pengo was working. The monitor eventually went out, but we didn't have any sound whatsoever coming from the Time Soldiers PCB. And we had a dead Battle Balls PCB in the Dynamo, but I was able to put my 60-in-1 JAMA PCB in there and confirm that the JAMA setup, the monitor and everything is working. So again, what I did off camera, I put the 60-in-1 in the Pengo and I put the Time Soldiers in the Dynamo, confirmed that the speaker in the Pengo is working fine. There's a lot of nonsense hacked up wires and stuff here, so we'll have to address the JAMA harness that's in the Time Soldiers, but at least it's working. And the Time Soldiers ran again, it displayed on the screen, but there's no sound whatsoever coming from the Time Soldiers, so I'm gonna have to do some investigation with that. I wanna continue the disassembly, pull things out of the cabinet so I can lay them flat on their sides on the floor and do my paint stripping technique with isopropyl alcohol and paper towels and saran wrap. So with the Time Soldiers, I already moved the bezel. There was a plexi overlay and then a paper bezel for the game, and then another paper bezel that was white, and then like a wooden sort of thin bezel here. So I've got that all exposed. And I believe this is relatively simple to rotate this, okay? There's a cutout, and we might have to drill holes into the wood to mount it, but it looks like it was designed to be rotated. But before I take the monitor out, I'm gonna take this tray out, and I think there's just a few Molex connections that I need to disconnect here for the control panel, and also the monitor remote board. So I think with that, it should be basically free and clear. I can push these out to confirm that, and that one's sort of stuck. All right, but I think if I lift it up this way, oh, I got some power connections here, and there is no hinge or any brackets or anything that hold this panel on. So it'll slide straight out like this, and you got to be careful, whoa, that you don't damage anything. We'll just put that over here for now. All right. All right, I've just got a 9/16 wrench here, and I'm gonna undo the nuts that are holding these lock bar bolts on. Get these out of the way. You know, and operators did this to, you know, prevent people from easily breaking into the coin door, stealing all those precious quarters. So let me take off these 4 bolts real quick. Okay, I got those lock bars off, and it is hot today. So next thing I want to take is the monitor out. So let me disconnect the monitor power and video signal cables. And I need my screwdriver to remove the ground. Okay. All right, and then I think the rest, that's dangling on that. I'll hook this in there. And I think the rest is bolts from the front. And I believe it kind of sits up on that ledge. So let's unscrew this. Whoa. And, whoops. And hopefully the monitor doesn't fall. And I take these 4 screws out. I think it's sitting on a ledge right here. I hope. All right, so far we're not falling. Let me actually grab my gloves. Just because like I've mentioned before, I've cut myself too many times on the frame of a monitor that I don't like grabbing it with my bare hands, and it's often filthy. Not that my hands aren't already grimy from doing this. Another thing I did, I'll show you in a second, is I removed the Time Soldier side art, the decals from the, here we go. Oh, nice and easy. Yeah, and I think we'll just be able to rotate it and put it back in, but we'll have to measure and drill the holes and where they go on that. But yeah, perfect. All right, Dynamo monitor secure. Like I said, we should be able to mount it vertically in here, no problem. I think the bezel is almost like a perfect square, so still not a light cabinet, but that's much easier to maneuver around. Over here on the Pengo, we can take the bezel off, and first we have a nice big, thick, and filthy sheet of glass, and I'm going to put somewhere safe over here. It has retaining brackets on either side, so we'll put that right here, out of the way. And we've got a Time Soldier's paper marquee, or a bezel, it looks like, which is kind of taped in place. Let's see. Yeah, some old brown packing tape here. All right. And there's a piece of cardboard. I think I mentioned that before. That tape is real sticky. Ooh. Okay. I think that cardboard is meant to help block out light, maybe from the marquee from coming around to the screen. All right, here's our paper Time Soldier's bezel. Put that over here. And kind of curious to see how this G07 is mounted. Oh man. So I see these four, oh boy, bolts in here. And it looks like this mounts from underneath. Do I really want to fight with this to take it out? I don't think there's another way to take this monitor out, and I don't really want to be flopping it around on its side with all that extra weight of the monitor. Let me think about that for a second. So we've got the control panel here, and I'm actually going to bring you in to take a closer look at what's going on with this. So obviously, here we go. Obviously, these are the rotary joysticks, and they have an interesting sort of setup down here, as does the Pengo control panel. So it's got your normal sort of latches like you would normally undo, and you see it kind of sort of rotates out, but it really doesn't even have a hinge. Let me disconnect a few of these Molex connectors, and I think part of these, this is sort of original, perhaps to, oh come on, to Pengo that was then hacked up into JAMA. That's strange. A lot of these have been cut and removed. Oh man. Okay. And I think like this connector was originally like mounted from underneath here into this like metal plate thing, and then this would be the only connector pushing on, but I don't know. The other thing that's kind of neat about this control panel, it's got these, they're not hinges, but they're these little spring-loaded brackets that, unless they're seized up, and perhaps they are, there we go, I can remove take that right out. So you see that spring-loaded sort of almost like, you know, the lock on a bathroom door, like at a gas station. So, yeah, unfortunately, they cut holes in this control panel, so we'll have to look at fixing those up either with some sort of you know, body filler, Bondo type of thing, or maybe I can find somebody willing to do a little bit of welding for me. So now back with this monitor. Oh boy. I need to do some thinking on the best way to get this thing out of here. So why don't I go and investigate that a little bit, and then I'll come back in a moment. Okay, I decided to just leave that monitor in the Pengo. It would have been way too big of an issue by myself with one person, because it mounts from underneath. So you'd have to have, you know, two hands to remove all 6 bolts, and then somebody to basically catch the cabinet, and then I'd have to put it back in. It's actually pretty easy to take the chassis out and work on the chassis, so I'm going to leave it there for now. So I've got both both cabinets laying on their sides on the garage floor. I have cardboard underneath both of them just to sort of protect them a little bit. I don't have it up on easel or sawhorses like I've done in the past, just because I'm doing 2 at once. One thing that's a little bit different that I'm a little bit sort of interested to see how it'll play out is, in the past, like with the Mizpac and the Joust, those were plywood cabinets that I was using this technique with. And these are both particle boards. So I'm gonna go a little bit easy, especially on the edges, because I don't want it to all wick into the particle board and swell it up, because, you know, with the saran wrap, it is gonna keep the moisture there for a while. So I'm gonna go a little bit easy on the side. So you've seen me use this technique before. Basically, I lay a bunch of paper towels completely covering the side of the cabinet. I prefer to use, and they're not cheap, but these Viva signature cloth paper towels. They really nice and thick and really hold on to the alcohol. I use 91% isopropyl alcohol. I like getting this from Walmart, actually, because they sell it really, really cheap. I get a dozen at a time. They ship for free, and they have these little spout tops to kind of help me control where it goes. And then I cover everything up, you know, saturate the paper towel really well with the isopropyl, and then I cover it up with saran wrap. and I leave it for like 6 to 8 hours, and then often the paint will just come right off. And I think I've only really used this with latex paint, so I don't know how oil paint would necessarily react. So I think oil paint's a lot stronger. And basically I'm going to use, you know, a bottle and a half, and these are 32 ounce. Yeah, so these are quart bottles of this isopropyl, and really just wet the whole thing down. Absolutely soak it. And again, I'm going to try to stay off the edges just to minimize drippage and also the risk of really getting the isopropyl into the particle board. And this little sort of built-in nozzle kind of helps me control where I am applying the fluid. I'll probably use a full bottle, maybe even 1.5 on it. You want it nice and soaked. And basically the isopropyl eats into the paint and kind of liquefies it again. So you get it back into this sort of liquid state, and then it just kind of sloughs right off of the cabinet, or at least that's how it's supposed to work. And yeah, I'm kind of running out here. You want to get as much of this air out of here. I'll use a little bit more. And with the plywood, you don't have to be too sort of scared, because it'll stand up, but particle board can swell when it's got moisture in it. So we're going a little bit easy with it here, but I think that's probably good. So then I take my saran wrap, and I've just got this cheap store brand stuff, and the saran wrap is going to keep the isopropyl from drying out too fast. So just come in here like so. Kind of tear it without really dragging it. So that won't do me any good. Maybe I can go, I don't know, the long way. My arms aren't quite long enough for that. I got long arms, but not necessarily that long. And it is hot. I am sweating. I tried to have the garage doors closed and like a fan to blow air conditioning from the main part of the house into the garage, which is probably extremely wasteful, but you know, it didn't really work all that well. So I have a pretty big garage, and it like had no impact on the temperature in here. And again, I don't know if that's going to accelerate this process or slow down this process, the heat and humidity, but like everything, it's an experiment, and we'll see what happens. I will have to do the front of this cabinet at some point, so I can see the ice blue paint poking through. Okay, that looks kind of all right. I was getting some dripping along the sort of where the monitor sort of cutout is, so I dropped a bunch of paper towel just to collect those drippings, and got some air pockets, but I think we should be in good shape. So I'm going to go and do the same thing on the Dynamo cabinet. Then I'm going to let it sit for at least 4 to 8 hours before checking it, and certainly by 8 hours I will be taking all of this off. So stay tuned for that. Okay, it's really only been about 4.5 hours, but now I think is the time to take everything off. I did a little test in the corner and the paint is coming off, at least on the Pengo. If anything, it's really starting to dry out, which is something you want to avoid because then the paint is drying back up again and will become hard and stuck. So I'm going to go ahead and take everything off now, even though I typically in the past have gone about 6 to 8 hours before doing that. You know, like I said, really, really hot out here in the garage, like 90 degrees, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. So I've got a spray bottle filled up with a bunch more 91% isopropyl alcohol. I've got a plastic scraping tool, very important that it's plastic and not metal, and I've got a bunch more paper towels. The reason you have the spray bottle is you want to keep this stuff wet as it's coming off, because otherwise it will dry back up again. And once the saran wrap comes off, it will dry really quickly. So you want to kind of work in sections, and you can come in even with the scraper and go through the paper towel, and it's coming off. Yeah, let me, oh, there goes some fireworks. Hopefully my dog isn't freaking out inside. Yeah, it's coming off. And by using the plastic scraper, you minimize the risk of, you know, damaging the original paint. And all I see is black coming off, not this beautiful sort of ice blue. So let me go, yeah, this looks like it's starting to dry, unfortunately. So let me work on this and I'll show you what it's like once I've made some progress. Okay, progress update. The bottom came out pretty good. It looks even better than it does on camera. Camera makes it look lighter than it actually is. It was tough going. I had to use a scraper quite a bit and actually the magic eraser. And when I tried to go up towards the top, it was completely dried out up here. So I went ahead and put some more paper towel down, fresh paper towel down, a bunch more alcohol. It already looks like it's almost dry over here, but it's not. So we'll let that go for a couple more hours. The more interesting thing is what's happening over here. So it's all bubbling up like really, really, like you can see that, right? It's just completely wrinkling and coming apart. Down the corner here, I'm actually down all the way to bare wood, which I don't love. But I'm getting a side art sticker appearing here. So let's do this together. I don't know if you saw that little copyright mark, but I can already tell what this is. So, yeah, look at all this. The top layer of paint is just like bubbled off entirely. And I think below it might be latex paint too, but see, I can just even just peel this off of the side art. Let's see what this is. Oh, it's damaged, but that's okay. Look at that. I think almost everybody will recognize this face. Mr. Clark Kent, Superman himself. All right. So, we know that this was a Taito Superman at one point in its life. And you know, that side art looks so nice. Wow. And the paint came right off of this sticker. You know, it's beat up in a couple spots, but you know, scrapes and bumps and bruises, but you know, 95% at least intact. Look at that. All right, I'm gonna spend a few minutes cleaning up all around the edge here, all down here, like over that. And then I'll come back and show you what it looks like when that's all done. You hear those fireworks going again. Okay, here we are. I think it's looking pretty good, actually. Ultimately, I think what was happening was, you know, the top layer was all bubbled up, but the bottom layer, the base layer, the original layer of paint, I think might have been latex as well. And so that was getting super, super soft too, and the top layer is getting all sticky. You can see the top layer is still over here a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do ultimately is, and you can see places like right here and down here, with even with the plastic scraper, the original bottom layer, the base layer, was coming up. But this decal is, like I said, you know, probably at least 95% intact. There's a scrape up here. I rubbed a little hard and got the inside of the bottom of the U rubbed off. Knuckles are scraped up, knees scraped up. Good gouge right there. But yeah, probably 95% or so intact. And because I'm going to use this as just a generic JAMA cabinet that I swap parts or swap PCBs and maybe control panels in and out, I think that's going to be fine to just leave this, assuming that the other side looks this good. So ultimately, because all this black is sort of a mess, what I think I'm going to do is eventually mask off the Superman side art and then gently sand around it and then spray just some black paint to smooth this all up and cover that all up. So yeah. So with the Pengo, I'm going to let this go a couple more hours, maybe 2 more hours, sort of like this. And then I'll come back in a little bit and we will try to get the rest of this black paint off of the blue because the bottom is looking pretty good. So I'll be back. All right, the Pengo's actually looking pretty good. I got all the black paint off of this side, but boy, let me tell you, it was a ton of work to do all of this. You know, the technique that I typically use, the isopropyl alcohol and paper towels and saran wrap, just really didn't want to work on this black paint. And I don't know if it's because it was an oil-based paint instead of a latex or what, but the isopropyl really wasn't eating up this paint or causing it to bubble up or really kind of just slide off. So I had to use my scraper a whole bunch and just work, and you can even see some of the residue left on the original paint, and just work it back and forth with that scraper and then come in with the magic eraser. And yeah, I would say all in all, it took me about 3 hours to get to this point on this one side of the cabinet, so about 3 hours. And I think it came out well. The original ice blue paint color on the Pengo is really durable, so I'm very much happy with it. There's just the teeniest amount of swelling right down here at the bottom, and it's almost not even worth addressing. So yeah, I'm happy with this, but I am not looking forward to redoing this on the other side. And I'm going to have to do it to the front too. There's actually 4 different panels that have been painted black. There's the sort of bottom piece right there. There's the kick plate all around the coin doors, and there's the speaker panel right there, and there's even this sort of back panel right there just above the monitor. All of those have been painted black, and all of those need to be stripped. And I don't want to spend, you know, another 6 hours doing that. So I'm going to look at an alternative technique. I picked up another container of citrus strip because I was out of it. Now, this is definitely more stronger than isopropyl alcohol, and it will eat through oil-based paint. But that's what I'm worried about, right? Will it eat through just a black layer, or can I do it and, you know, and I'll do it quick enough so that it only eats through the black layer? Because if I leave it on too long, it will eat through the blue paint and go all the way down to the bare wood, and I want to avoid it. So we're going to test it out on a corner on the other side of the cabinet. And just before I do that, here is the other side of the Dynamo cab. And again, we have our Taito Superman side art, and I'd say this side is looking even a little bit better than the other. This might be 97% intact, just a couple dings and scratches and that sort of thing. And again, lots of unevenness with this paint and some of the original that wanted to stay on. And again, I think it was latex paint on top of latex paint on top of bare wood. So I'll do the same thing like I was saying with the other side. We'll mask off the Superman side art. We'll do some light sanding on the black paint, and then we will respray that black paint on top. And I think that'll come out pretty well. So yeah, let me get this Pengo flipped over to the other side, and then we will test out the citrus strip on an inconspicuous corner. Okay, per the instructions, I have shaken up the container really well. I'm going to pour it into, I think, this other container here, or I can maybe just dip a piece of paper towel in it. Another thing I actually did while I had the cabinets on their sides was address the leg levelers. So The ones in the Pengo were fine. They just needed to be sort of adjusted. But the ones on the Dynamo were broken completely, so I replaced them. So yeah, the citrus strip instructions say to leave it on for at least 30 minutes, but I think that would probably be way too long. So I'm just going to get a little bit on some paper towel here, and I think we'll put it on for maybe half an hour. Sort of working into this little corner over here. I don't want to go all the way to the edge just because, is that enough? You pour a tiny drop onto it. There we go, that'll be plenty. And we'll see how this corner works. I'll probably let this go for, I don't know, 5 minutes or so. I can already see the paint. Look at that, it's already starting to come off. Let me rub it and see if... I rarely use citrus strip. I'm a much bigger fan of the isopropyl and paper towels technique, but that wasn't enough here. And I am wearing gloves just because this stuff, you don't want it to come in contact with your skin. Take these off for now. And those are nitrile gloves because I think the citrus strip will eat right through latex gloves because it eats through latex paint. You can even see just already it is starting to react and pull some flakes off. So like I said, I'm going to let this go for just a couple minutes and then we'll wipe it off, scrape it off, and see how we're doing at that point. All right, it's been right about 5 minutes and I'm going to come in here and remove it. I've got paper towel and a scraper. I can tell the black paint has been wrinkling up, and I can almost see it sort of lifting as we speak. And basically what I'm looking for is to see if there's any blue paint that's coming up. And if there's any blue paint that's coming up, that means that the citrus strip is too strong. So here we go. All right. I mean, it's working, and I don't think I see any blue paint. And I'll look for blue in here, and I see nothing but black. So maybe 5 minutes isn't quite enough. So I'm going to do another spot. I'm basically going to move over like to right here. I'll do another spot and I'll leave that for 10 minutes and I'll do it the exact same way. So let me go do that and then we'll take a look at what 10 minutes of citrus strip looks like. All right, it's been about 10 minutes and we are ready to check our next test spot. And just by looking at it, I can see a lot more wrinkling going on in the black paint, and hopefully we're not taking up any of the blue. And like with anytime you're working with chemicals, even glues or paints, you know, the temperature and the humidity are going to affect how it works, how it reacts. And it is very hot and humid right now. It's still in the low 80s in the garage, and it's been close to 90 in here all day. So here it goes. Look at that. That's coming right off. Ooh, I think we found our mark. Still hanging on a little bit around the edges. But yeah, I don't see any blue coming off. So that's great. We can maybe even have gone like 12 minutes. But I think, and like with what's left here, I can clean that up with magic eraser. So let me wipe this down just a little bit, just to make sure we've sort of stopped the reaction. And I don't know if there's anything you would want to use to kind of inhibit the citrus strip from continuing to work, but I think that spot looks pretty good. You know, if you leave it on, it'll just keep eating through all the paint, like the alien blood in the acidic alien blood in the Aliens franchise. So I think we are ready to proceed with the rest of the cabinet. I'm a bit nervous here. I don't know if I can get the whole thing into frame, sort of just where the tripod is right here. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to want to use a brush to sort of apply this, and I don't know if I want to work in stages or what. Maybe I should have thought of that. But I just have a cheap chip brush here, and now I am going to pour. Actually, maybe I should just pour the citrus strip right on, and I can spread it around with the brush. So, man, this feels risky. Maybe I'll do sort of the bottom half of the cab, and then we'll apply it to the top half while the bottom half is sort of doing its work. This stuff smells almost like candy. It looks like it could be candy, but you don't want to get this on your skin. You don't want to get it in your eyes or mouth or anything like that. And it is one of the, more gentler, quote unquote, paint strippers. There's very, very harsh chemicals out there that you could use. And, if you're looking to strip a cabinet completely, down to bare wood, if you're going to do it all over again, you might want to consider something stronger than citrus strip, but we're just trying to take this layer of black paint off, and I want to be a little bit delicate around the spots that have already been applied and around the bottom. Just sort of give that a lighter touch there. And I can see flecks of the paint already, of the black paint, already coming up on the brush. Okay, I think I'm feeling bold, and I might as well cover the rest. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, it's been a good 10 or 12 minutes, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing here. All over the cabinet, all of the black paint is wrinkling and lifting. Maybe I could have done a little bit more along the edges. I think I can maybe come along back and do that, but I really like how it looks. I also did another sort of test rubbing some paper towel into the exposed areas of the blue, and it still wasn't coming off at all. I don't see the blue reacting, so this ice blue paint that Sega Gremlin or Gremlin Sega used on Pengo, definitely very, very durable. So I think I'm going to dive in and start scraping this off. I have a fresh scraper that's brand new, hasn't been used. So part of me wants to let it go a little bit more to loosen up even more, but I am worried about doing it too much and screwing up this beautiful original paint. So got the trash can ready to go next to me to start dumping all this stuff in. I got paper towels at the ready. So yeah, let's do this. Oh, it just sloughs right off. This is beautiful. This is absolutely gorgeous. Oh my goodness. Almost no resistance. This is, the smell, and it's not so much the citrus strip smell anymore as it is the the paint, the smell of the paint almost burning. But yeah, I'm not seeing any of the blue coming off, which is nice. Come on. It gets a little bit iffy down here on the edges because I went easy down there because, there's some exposed wood and a little bit of damage. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This is great. This is so much easier than the 3 hours I spent on the other side scraping and magic erasering Yeah, I mean, there's little specks that we'll have to clean up for sure. But, man, oh man, this is coming off like on the other cabinet, how easy it lifted off of the, especially the parts that was on the part of the paint that was on the side art, the Superman side art. Yeah, you can just look at this, right? Like, you see this. It's just sliding right off. And with all of this stuff, your mileage may vary, right? If you have a Pengo that's been painted, you know, the person who covered it up, they could have used a different black paint, right? And it might react differently to this technique. You might be doing it when it's, you know, really cold out or something, and you'll get a different result. So you always want to test and see how it's going to work, right? In that inconspicuous spot, or whatever you want to call it. Oh, that's nasty. Before jumping in, but I am really, really, really happy right now. I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. Yeah, this is great. This is great. Now I'm kind of just smearing all this stuff around. Oh, and it's nasty, but look how great that paint looks underneath. And yeah, I haven't seen a speck of blue paint get lifted yet, which is remarkable as far as I'm concerned. That was my biggest fear, right? Was I going to take off the blue paint by accident along with the black paint that I was trying to get rid of? Yeah, we got some work to do here around the edge. That's for sure, but I would much rather be doing that in a couple of key spots than the whole flipping cabinet. See, let's come up here now. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Let's just make sure that I'm recording all of this, and yes, I am. It would have been a shame if you missed out on this lovely, nasty mess. All right. I'm excited, you know. We'll get this monitor back and working again. I mean, it was working when we first tried it, and then it died out on us, and we need to continue our investigation of what happened. But we'll be able to get that going. And I do have working Pengo PCB, plus a little surprise to go along with that. Details to follow. I've got the joystick. I've got the bezel art. I've got a new control panel overlay. I've got side art. I've got a marquee. I need to order some buttons because I don't think I have the right color buttons for Pengo. Look at that. Beautiful. So yeah, this should be... this is a good sign, as easy as this is coming. Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun restoration. I can't recall seeing many people doing Pengo restorations in the past. I don't think it was a rare game. Maybe underappreciated. You know, certainly not as well known as Frogger, right? Especially after the notoriety that Frogger got from Seinfeld. And, you know, Pengo was a bit earlier than Sega's later successes with, you know, games that eventually got ported to the Genesis, you know, things like Altered Beast, which frankly I never cared for, and Golden Axe, which is a fantastic game in my opinion. Okay. But Pengo is definitely fun. All right, let me clean up the rest of this with paper towel, and I'll take a magic eraser to it as well. And I'll come back at that point and show you what we're looking at. Okay, turns out Citrus Strip was 1,000,000% the right move. This came off so much easier with the Citrus Strip than with the isopropyl alcohol and paper towels and scrubbing for hours. So yeah, really, really easy. You can see a couple of areas where I went kind of aggressively to get the last remnants of black paint out, but I think that'll be great in the long run. And you know, in retrospect, now that I've been able to kind of examine this a bit closer, I think this is laminate. Okay, I don't think this blue paint is paint. It's not paint. I think it's laminate, and I'm removing oil-based paint from original laminate. So yeah, every cabinet, every time is a little bit different. Every adventure is a little bit different. So, but I think this is working out really well. We have this kind of ding right here in the edge, which isn't too bad. We'll figure out if we're going to do something with that later. But yeah, so far so good. So what I'm going to do now is roll this cabinet onto its back. I'm going to remove the coin door. I'm going to remove the speaker grill, and then I'm going to do the 4 panels on the front of the cabinet that need the black paint stripped off to blue. So let me go and knock that out. All right, that looks great. If Teddy will get out of the picture. Yeah, and I think this on the front, these 4 panels, the paint came off even easier than it did on the other side with the Citrus Strip. So really, really happy about that. There is one small nick down here at the bottom right there, but that's really no big deal. I did take the coin door off and I took the speaker grill off when I did this. Took it off, stripped the paint, put the speaker grill back on. I left the coin door off only because, and it's down here, only because we are going to have to repaint that a little bit, at least the face of it. So yeah, all in all, I am really happy with how this turned out. The cabinet is looking fantastic. That beautiful ice blue laminate exposed once again, terrific. And you know, once I figured out that Citrus Strip technique, it really wasn't so bad at all. So yeah. Oh, one more thing I did, I cleaned up the monitor just a little bit with some glass cleaner. And you can actually see, if it's coming up on camera, 2 layers of screen burn. So the top level, which is, you know, the darker part where it's a scanner, insert coin, credit down here, that's the Time Soldiers screen burn. But if you look closely, you can see a Sega logo right there, and then it says Diamond Block and Ice Block, and even Pengo right there. So I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, so I think that'll about do it for this episode. In the next episode, I think what we're going to do is start addressing the control panel. We need to restore that back to a Pengo control panel. We'll try to get the monitor working again, and we'll be well on our way in this restoration project. Want to thank you all for all of your support. Even if this is your first time ever watching, I really appreciate it. Plus all the likes, the comments, the subscriptions, people sharing this all over the place. You know, one of the new things that we've been doing now that the channel recently became monetized is channel memberships. So if you see that join button around, I think it's, you know, near where the title is down below, near this near the description of the video, that join button allows you to become a channel member. Basically, you throw a couple bucks to support the channel. You throw a couple bucks my way each month, and in exchange, you get access to some pretty cool exclusive perks only available to channel members. I want to thank our newest channel member, Tricky Z33, who just joined the other day. Really appreciate your support. You know, these channel memberships are a great way to support the channel, and in particular, a bunch of us are having a lot of fun in the channel members only Discord channel. So if you want to learn a little bit more about channel memberships and how those work, stay tuned for a message about that in just a second. But otherwise, I think I'll go ahead and wrap it up right here. As always, I'm Charlie. Thanks for watching Overtime Arcade, and I'll see you next time. Every year, thousands of classic arcade machines are destroyed by rot, neglect, or abuse. Many of those that do survive suffer the humiliating fate of some pathetic multicade conversion in dung heaps like this. Poor little fella. I'm Charlie from Overtime Arcade. I've been asked if, after witnessing this god-awful misery for the past 40 years, if I've finally gotten used to this. Used to this? How can any arcade enthusiast with eyes and ears and a heart get used to this? The vile odor of a nicotine-stained cabinet where hundreds of mice use the same control panel as a toilet. The heartbreaking squeak of a 4-way joystick so worn out its ball top is coming loose. The sight of a CRT monitor so tired it's too dim to see. And one with so many cold solder joints it doesn't even have the high voltage for neck glow. It's enough to make Eugene Jarvis cry. Now, we can't save them all, but with your help, we can save some, and all you have to give is $1.99 per month. That's less than 7 cents a day. Your 7 cents will help restore one of these otherwise doomed machines back into a clean and bright working arcade game. Put life-giving new capacitors into a dying little chassis. Nourishing paint onto dilapidated side art. Fresh transistors into a busted old power supply. And if you become an Overtime Arcade channel member on YouTube right now, you'll get something that's good for your heart. An assortment of exclusive channel membership perks, including early access to new videos, an invitation to our members-only Discord, a monthly members-only live stream, and so much more. Can you think of a better reason to support Overtime Arcade right now than to give some classic arcade machine another chance to spread joy and happiness again with gamers young and old? Right, Donkey Kong?
Overtime!